A neighborhood covered in debris and the stench of jet fuel still fresh in the air. You're looking at live aerials just hours after a two-seater Navy jet plunged into an apartment complex, immediately setting the buildings around it ablaze. Miraculously, at this point, there are no reports of deaths. Let's go straight to our Brian Todd with the very latest. Brian?
Joe, what we know right now, this is the very latest from Virginia Beach Mayor Bill Sessoms, who was just on CNN's air a moment ago. 9 confirmed injuries at this time. People on the ground injured by this crash. According to Mayor Sessoms, this was because of the plane crash that occurred shortly after noon. This FA-18D fighter plane attached to the Naval Air Station at Oceana. We're going to show you some of the very latest pictures. We have some ground view pictures of the disaster from this iReporter named James Conrad, who took some video for us. This brand new video, you can see just the ferocity of these flames just lapping up over the roof of the building, coming through the windows. Just some incredible images there from literally moments after this crash. Look, it really gives you an illustration of just the tough task ahead for the first responders as they get there, and that they're still facing at this hour. One thing that the mayor just told us is that they've only gone through 2 of the 5 buildings that were damaged in this crash. They have 3 more buildings to go through, so you may see some very different casualty figures in the hours ahead. Another piece of video we're going to show you just from a slightly different angle from the ground there. Again, flames as the first responders rushed to the scene there. One of the people, we were told, was injured by smoke inhalation, was a police officer who responded to the scene. Again, the 9 people injured on the ground include, apparently, according to officials, the 2 crew members. All of these people who were injured treated for non-life-threatening injuries. Look at the smoke there. That is what the battalion chief of the Virginia Beach Fire Department, Tom Riley, said he was most concerned of, the carbon fibers from the smoke. This is a very distinctive type of smoke coming from this plane. You see it here in this just incredible video of the first responders just in the moments after the crash. Some ground view there of them coming to the scene and just trying to get organized on the ground, get to the scene as quickly as possible, sift through the damage, find survivors. We have another piece of video here. It's actually some still pictures here of the tail section of the plane on the ground just moments after the crash. There you can see it, very dramatic. I mean, you can see just some of the sections of that tail on the ground. Some other still videos here of the scene. Again, smoke from the Virginia Department of Transportation cameras that you see emanating from the scene. Have a little clip of some sound from Battalion Chief Tom Riley on just how tough it is for them to go searching through some of this wreckage in these early hours after the crash. Take a listen.
We've had some collapses. There's been a pancake collapse, which is a flat collapse, and then we had some voids. So right now, the structure is too unsafe to get into, and we have to shore that up before we can put weight on that. We're working with the hotel management and the apartment management to find out if anybody's missing. So far, we haven't had that.
And we're going to show you some other video now just to illustrate just the scene at hand and just what was going through the minds of the first responders and the citizens. You see citizens there helping the first responders, taking hoses across the street, everybody joining in here. Just incredible video of just the moments after this crash, and when people from the neighborhood, while some of them are taking video, others are helping, just rushing to help the first responders get those hoses across the street and get some of those flames out. Again, in the very early stages right after that, first responders will always tell you that just navigating through flames and smoke and and materials very, very hot to the touch are some of the most treacherous parts of responding to this. Now let's talk location here. This occurred just after the plane took off from the Naval Air Station at Oceana. I'm going to show you this Google map here from this runway, just about 2 miles to the crash site. This is the Mayfair Mews Apartments on Broadneck Road. We're just going to go there and show you these buildings that were hit. 5 buildings damaged here by this crash, but they have a total of, well, probably 8 or 9 buildings in this complex. about 3 or 4 floors to a building, 8 apartments to a building, we're told. Going to continue on here. Take a look at this. This is the Virginia Beach Middle School, just about a third of a mile away from this crash site. But we are told students were on spring break. So, but you do have this middle school just blocks away from the scene of this crash. Heading forward now in the same direction, you can see just about how close this was, about a mile from the ocean where they could have conceivably ditched the plane. And again, Virginia Beach, this is an area very heavily populated, especially this time of year with vacationers. That only about a mile away from where the crash occurred, Joe. So you get a sense of just the population center here, the schools nearby, the neighborhoods nearby, what could have conceivably happened, but also just how close they were to maybe potentially being able to ditch that plane in the ocean.
I know. When you think about it, you have spring break going on in some places. You have Good Friday.
That's
you have
right.
Passover. All of these things could have contributed to a lot of people in the area. Let me ask you one other thing, Brian, and that is about the carbon fibers in the smoke. Now, we know that firefighters have apparatus to breathe air, but is this smoke toxic? Is that the concern as you understand it?
It is a concern from what we've heard from just about everybody from this scene, and people also including former Navy pilots. This is a different kind of fuel. It's highly combustible. The smoke is very toxic. You heard that the fire battalion chief there in Virginia Beach said that's his main concern, the carbon fibers from that smoke, containing the smoke at the scene. Now, you look at some of those live aerial pictures, it looks like they may have contained a lot of that smoke at the scene. But again, remember what the mayor said just a few minutes ago. They've only gone through 2 of the 5 buildings. And the 3 buildings that they have yet to go through may be the most devastated buildings of them all. So again, keep a close eye on these casualty figures. Everybody's saying that they're very thankful, of course, that right now, at the moment, no reports of fatalities. That could very well change. Only 2 buildings have been completely gone through by first responders. 2 of the 5 buildings hit at this point.
That's for sure, because those numbers have slowly but steadily gone up.
That's right.
From 2 to 7, now to 9, all non-life-threatening, at least according to the mayor. We're hoping to get an update from him in about 15 minutes or so there from the scene. So thanks so much for your reporting, Brian, and we'll keep checking back with you.
Thank you.
There are some concerns that this may have been a disaster waiting to happen. CNN Pentagon correspondent Barbara Starr taking a closer look at the pressure to close this Navy base due to heavy housing development in the area. Barbara.
Well, you know, Joe, at one time, Oceana was farmland in rural Virginia. As we see from the video today, heavily populated with homes and businesses, very crowded. The Navy still operates here with one of its major training squadrons on the East Coast. But back in 2003, 2005, the Base Closure Commission of the federal government, which looks at trying to shut down military bases, recommended Oceana be shut down because of encroaching development, because there was too much housing too close to the base. That set off a political firestorm. Many Virginia politicians wanted to keep the base open. It brings, of course, economic development to the area, and the Navy said it was the only economically viable option for that East Coast training squadron. So Oceana has remained open over the years, even as the housing got closer and closer to the base. And what we saw today is the reality of U.S. military operations trying to coexist in residential and business areas across this country. This is what goes on. They practice at Oceana for their carrier landings, and they fly almost daily. It depends on the training cycle, but people in that neighborhood will tell you they hear Navy jets all the time. They're quite used to it. Hopefully today they avoided complete disaster, but still, that final word to come on what has happened to the people on the ground. Joe?
Yeah, it certainly could create another controversy, but we've seen that before. People basically voting their pocketbooks. And in a time when the economy is just not so good, it would be hard to see how people would want their jobs to move somewhere else.
Well, that's exactly right, especially in Virginia, where the U.S. military has a large presence, as it does in places like California, Texas, Florida. these become very significant political issues. Small businesses grow up around military bases, shopping centers, housing, development, real estate. The military is a lifeline for so many communities. Just think about the U.S. Army in Texas, at Fort Bliss, at Fort Hood. There are massive economic questions for the communities around these areas. If the military goes away, they lose out economically, and the military doesn't want to be isolated from America. It wants to coexist in communities. It wants Americans to know who they are and what they do. So this is very tough. They have to be able to operate safely. And what we're learning today is there have been a lot of questions about Oceana over the years because of the changing structure, the changing environment around the base. Once farmland, now very heavy development, as we saw today.
But for the record, Barbara, it looks like there haven't been a lot of problems with planes out there, and there haven't appeared to have been a lot of problems with this particular plane.
No, that's a really good point, Joe. I mean, the Navy certainly tries and does succeed as much as possible. The great majority of the flights perfectly safe. People often complain about the noise, but the Navy, the Air Force, the military generally operates very safely, even in these populated areas.
Barbara Starr at the Pentagon, thanks so much for that. We are waiting for a news conference from the mayor of Virginia Beach along with Navy officials after the break. And I talked with a witness who saw the crash as it happened, her minute-by-minute account just ahead. Plus, we're taking a closer look at the accident site and signs the pilots may have made life-saving decisions to crash the plane where they did. And while the Pentagon tries to cut billions of dollars from the budget, the Defense Secretary is flying home on almost $1 million of your money.